Good morning, interwebs, and welcome to Fuel for Success, episode number 269er. Good to see everybody here on a great Wednesday. Our show today, topic family and relationships and related things. Possibly, we may have some banter and that sort of thing as well. You just never know. But we've got an awesome set of questions coming up about family, about relationships. I'm going to provoke our audience right now.
Let's
About
do
to be
it.
provocational. You okay with that?
I am.
Hey, send us your questions. I know you've got them. I want to hear them. Send them. Tweet them out. Send them to me. Text them. Email them. Ask on the show. Call me on the phone. Knock on my door. Send me a letter. Hey, Snapchat me. Whatever. Get us your questions. I know you've got them. Y'all have been slacking, and I'm calling you out. Let's get the questions.
Yes. Especially our live audience, Mike. Our live audience is here. They're welcome to ask questions. So feel free, guys, anytime throughout the show. There is a chat box over here to the right. Check it out and feel free to ask us questions because that's what this show is all about. It's really a live Q&A show. We answer questions when people ask.
That's right. And any question, unless you're Carol, you have to vet your questions. So filter them through me.
Especially when I use the word any.
Yeah. And hey, good to see our friend Jeff Bariza from the Detroit area. Good to see you on the show this morning, Jeff, and welcome.
And also, don't forget about Marie from Canada. It's been a while since I've seen
That's
Marie.
right. Good to see Marie.
And of course, we got the one and only Tommy here live with us, and Sherry, and other people that we're not able to see. So whoever's out there, you never know who's watching. Gracias, my friends.
That's right. And of course, the one and only Carol Hopkins.
I'm
a personal fan, so to me, it's an honor to have her on the show. And I had something else. Oh, you know what? So we're going to talk about family and relationships, but I'm going to relay a story that my son told me. He had to go to court for a traffic-related issue, and he was telling me the story. And sometimes people just need, I think, life coaching. Because he said he goes to court. Now, this is a court of law with like a judge with the gavel and the robe and the whole bit, right? Like court, this is serious business. And he's like, the bailiff said 7 times, turn off your cell phone before the judge comes in. And then the judge comes in, he said 15 seconds later, somebody's phone rings. And he's like, what are they thinking? Like, did you not hear the 7 times? And he said, the other thing is, somebody showed up for court in pajama pants. I'm like, hello? What are we thinking? People could use some life coaching advice here.
Not thinking, that's the problem. Or they just don't know. Maybe they really grew up in a household where parents never slowed down to teach them. Where is the teaching and the training and the mentoring and the, hey, just so you know, if you ever go to a funeral, these are the do's and don'ts. If you're in a wedding, these are the do's and don'ts. Mike, etiquette. Etiquette is the word maybe we're looking for. How do you act when you go to the courtroom before a judge? I mean, to me, like turning off your phone is like, that should be a given, but not in our society. And wearing your pajamas to court, the only way out of that is an honest, I overslept and I had to do it.
Carol wasn't the one in pajama pants. She's just kidding. But I think as I'm thinking about it, it's one of those situations too where listen, no matter what, however you feel about it, and you think people just have to accept me for who I am or whatever. What appearances are important, and especially in a situation like that, I've had an experience. I had a traffic related deal. My license actually got suspended. It wasn't like any DUI sort of deal. It was like an insurance thing. And didn't see the letter or whatever. I ended up getting my license suspended, got pulled over. That almost took me to jail. It was crazy. And then I had to go to this court where I'm like, there were like criminals there. And I'm going, well, how did this escalate so quickly? But I'm sitting there in a tie, and the DA keeps like looking at me, right? He keeps like looking back at me, and finally goes, hey, come here. He goes, what's your deal? So I told him my name. I said, well, I got you my license suspended, whatever. And it's like, up to a $5,000 fine and 30 days in jail and whatever for driving on a suspended license. And he just looks at me and goes, you don't seem to fit. What's the deal?
Mike, Mike's voice went out. So here's the deal. Until he gets back, Mike, when we get your voice back here, my friends, I'm sure it was a good story. Anyways, I'm glad you got your license taken care of. I'm glad to know that I'm doing a daily internet talk show with somebody that has a legit driver's license, because that's one of our criteria. And so, anyways, we're glad you got it back, Mike. So let me dive in. Mike, are you there?
I'm here now. Yeah.
I was just saying, bro, I'm actually glad you have a legit driver's license, because I don't know about doing a talk show with someone that, that's like got to be the most basic criteria, right?
This was several years ago. It was an insurance deal. Anyways, the DA cut me a deal, and it cost me $100, and that was the end of the thing. But it was because I was dressed nice. I presented myself and I spoke respectfully. So he cut me a deal, and it was a good deal. But hey, let's jump into the questions. And I want to remind everybody, by all means, ask questions, family relationship. If you want to know where to court, you can ask us that too. Anyhow,
if you need court advice, come see us.
Not like we're experts. Haven't been in court that many times. Got some great questions lined up here, and everybody, I think, if they're watching the show, and the family and relationship show is one of our most popular and favorite shows. We get a lot of views on it. A lot of people watch this because I think everybody wants to improve their relationships, because it has such an impact on your life. And let me ask you this: what are a few things that people can do, like some actions they can take to improve the quality of their existing relationships?
Well, Mike, the best way is time. Time is the number one gift that somebody could give to somebody in a relationship. So spending quality time, and then connecting. Not only just quality time, but connecting. They kind of go hand in hand. But, Mike, I could spend 30 minutes with somebody and have a deeper connection than spending 4 hours with somebody else. It's all about your conversation, the connection, and the quality time. Another thing that we could probably do to improve our relationships is to practice good listening and good conversation. There's a difference between maybe communication and conversation. Good conversation through, good question asking, maybe showing interest in what's going on in someone's life. Another thing we could probably do to improve the quality of our relationships is to be emotionally, mentally healthy. We talk a lot about that on the show, on the importance of, being a person that is positive, that, you want to be the type of person that others enjoy being around. So you don't want to be full of yourself. You don't only want to just talk about yourself all the time. I know some people, Mike, that's all they do is talk about themselves and talk about their problems and what's going on in their life. And when someone else starts talking, it's like they just kind of either look away or they appear just very disinterested. And you can't be that way. You have to, if you want quality, I think the key word was how to improve the quality of our relationships. In my opinion, those are the best pieces of advice there.
That's good. I would piggyback on that a little bit, and I'm going to use like some secondhand information, because having spent years with you, doing the work that we do, missions work and other things, and one thing that I've learned from Matt is that when you're with somebody, when you're spending time with them, be present and be in the moment. I see a lot of times, and you're the master of this, and so that's one thing that I've learned. And I see, and now I see like the antithesis. I see the opposite of that all the time. I see people all the time, like, having a conversation, even, they're at dinner or whatever, having a conversation, they're totally not engaged, in that conversation. They're only half there. They're doing something else, and, they're distracted. And it's like, if you're going to spend the time to do something, do it right. Right.
Yeah.
Be focused on it. Can you imagine, like, you and I doing this show, right? We're connecting with our audience, the people that are watching live and watching, and be like, yeah, hey, start texting on the phone, like, yeah, that's hey, that's a great answer.
Yeah, and that's what people do. You're right. Mike, the analogy of what you're giving right now and the word picture of it is perfect, because that's what people do to their spouses, their children, their friends. You know, the amount of people that you try to connect with that are always on their phones. And what's funny is all of our staff at Mission 25 are like, okay, guys, put away the phones. They'll be there in 20, 30, 40 minutes. Let's just chat. Let's, you know. And, you know, we're all so glued to our phones. But, Mike, perfect word picture, and you're right. There is a power in being present. Well, and that takes away, though, from a lot of, like, a lot of people that practice being present in their relationships. They've got to be focused people, because there's a lot that I miss by being present. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are like, man, you never answer your phone. And I'm like, you know, if I answered every phone call, I would literally be a schizophrenic in a mental hospital. I wouldn't even know how to function. Like, so there's a give and take to that. There's just one of those things where you got to realize, hey, because I am present and in the moment of what I'm doing, I mean, it wouldn't be nothing for Mike and I during this show to miss 15 to 20 extremely important texts or email, or even a couple of calls. I mean, you know, I've already had 2 come in right now. So, yeah. You know, and it's one of those things where there's a give and take to the being present. Because if you're present in your business and you're focused and you don't multitask, then you're present when you're working out. Then you're present when, you know, like Mike was working out yesterday, and I called him because we had a very detailed business meeting. And then after the business meeting, I thought of 2 more things. When I called him, he's like, you could clearly tell he was like working out. He was on the treadmill, and you know, he was nice enough to answer my call. And I was like, hey, bro, I was like, you know what? Call me after the workout. It's totally cool. Thankfully, he just answered my 2 questions real quick. But in other words, we got to be able to let people be in the present moment is what I'm getting to, without making them feel bad or be aggravated or frustrated. Let people be in the present moment. You know what I'm saying? As Mike is about to bring my point home. There he is.
Yeah, you know, I think that one thing to keep in mind too is that you have limited resources in the amount of time and the amount of attention that you have, and so sometimes you literally need to prioritize your relationships and say, you know what, because I'm present in the moment, spending time, you know, dealing with this relationship and building value and quality into this relationship. Sometimes you have to set other things aside, and that's, you know, the analogy that you were given with phone calls. It's exactly true. You know, you can't spread yourself so thin that nobody gets, you know, the quality you. Sometimes you have to say no to the good to say yes to the best, and spend time with those things that you want to build deeper relationships, deeper quality with. So, so let me ask you this, and I wanted to, first of all, Marie, we saw the comment that she made about getting into the ladies shelter, and that's awesome. So we'll be in prayer for that. It's at 1 o'clock today. So best of luck, and may God be with you in that. And that's a great endeavor. So hopefully that works out well. And I also wanted to bring out, Tommy made a comment, less of a question, more of a comment. He said, communication issues, sometimes misunderstanding what people are saying. And he says he has to try very hard to really hear. And I think what you mean by this, Tommy, is really to understand what it is that they're trying to get across. Do you have any tips for Tommy in that situation and listening to those things?
You know, Tommy, I would tell you to don't be afraid to ask for a clarification. Say, you know what, I just want to make sure I really heard what you were saying. Nobody is bothered by that. You know, so in other words, rather than trying to guess it, you're actually better off by saying, hey, Mike, I know you just shared this with me, but I really want to make sure I got what you were saying. And most people will give you that leeway and be like, no big deal. It's kind of like if you forget somebody's name and you don't want to say, what's your name again? You know, because then it appears like you don't really care, you weren't personal, or you weren't really listening. But I've learned, Mike, the honesty of, hey, listen, man, I'm so sorry. What's your name again? You know? Yeah, they might be like, I can't believe you don't remember me. And I've had people say that, like, how do you not remember my name? You know, but the honesty of, and just be like, man, I'm sorry, my mind, you know, but I want to remember it now, you know, and just like totally like, you know, they both go hand in hand of just the honesty, Tommy, of just saying, hey, if you don't mind, can you repeat that for me? I didn't quite catch what you were saying. Yeah, that's what I would say, Mike. Anything you
Yeah.
throw in there on that?
Well, I agree completely. And in fact, that's an active listening technique, is to repeat back what you think you heard back to someone and give validation, verification. And if you say, "Hey, this is what I understood you to say," and you repeat that back, people are, really never going to get upset about that. That's actually a way to build a deeper relationship and communicate on a deeper level. It's again an active listening technique. So definitely do that. And I like, and Britton says people respect pure honesty. I believe that. And if your intention and your motive is really, and if you truly value the person you're speaking to, that comes across. You can't fake that authenticity. But if you value that person, you say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Could you remind me?" If you're distracted and you don't really care about that person, they're going to pick up on that and maybe they will be offended. But if you're genuine, you care, I don't think they're going to be offended. And that's when, honesty and authenticity are so powerful in that scenario.
Well, and I'll tell you this, and Mike, maybe we both should address this. As you go through life, you're viewed one way by people that you've connected with. Then maybe you grow, or you've had more success, you've made more money, you have more influence. Maybe you became a professional. Maybe it's, you became a professional in sports or business or, whatever. Maybe you wrote an unbelievable book and all of a sudden you got this amazing interview on Good Morning America. And, I think at the heart of most people, they want to be real. They want to be genuine. And what happens when you start meeting and interacting with thousands of people, it really does all become a blur, and you mean it. So for me, I know this for a fact that there are people, Mike, that maybe over a weekend because I might have spent a whole weekend at their church, or maybe even at a Mission 20, like there was deep connection, right? But to try to remember their name, if I saw them 5, 10 years down the road, some I'll be able to, some I haven't. And there's like this guilt of and I literally have people say it. I get it. Now that you're big time, Mike, that is probably, if you ever want to really tick me off, joke about that kind of stuff. Because to me, first of all, that's immature. Second of all, you're prejudging, assuming that because I've had some success that now I don't care about you. And that's not true at all. You gotta be understanding. And Mike, that's what a lot of people, and that's almost victim thinking. That's almost poverty thinking. Oh, now that you got, now that you've succeeded, no. And yeah, there is an element of when you succeed, you can't remember the people that loved you or was kind to you when hate to use the words, but when you were a nobody. It goes both sides, right? But at the heart of most people that I know, are people who are like, yeah, I get it. Now that you're successful, you don't have time to call me back. No, it's not that I don't have time to call you back. It might take 3 or 4 more days now because there's 75 other people that I care about as much that are waiting on me to call them back. Did you hear all that, Mike?
I got most of it. And that's completely true. Agree 100% on that. And sometimes, and like I said before, you have to value, and you have limited resources. Everybody has limited time, limited energy, and there's a finite amount of connecting and conversation and relationships that you can manage. It's just all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
Let me ask you this. In a very busy season of life, this is again based on talking about communication. In a very busy season of life, how can a person?
Yeah, I saw the question come in pre-show. What Mike was asking is when someone is truly really busy, maybe they're traveling a lot, maybe their business has grown, maybe they've had twins, maybe they've adopted 2 kids from China, how does somebody continue to communicate with past friends, family members, or not past, but friends or family members, or even people in their current life? Listen, I mean, this right here is straight up tough because your life changes. Sometimes you have more time to give than what you used to. Now that my son is 13, I might have a little more time than what I did when he was 2. Or maybe I had more time when he was 2 than when I have at 13. Mike, for me, my life is getting so crazy narrow right now because I've got 4 years left with my son, and I'm so strategic about it that I'm very narrow. I'm getting on friends and family's nerves how narrow I am because I really only have a certain amount of time and energy and resources, and it goes into my son and my business. And at the end of the day, Mike, I think you got to have upfront conversations with close friends and family and just say, look, and it depends on the kind. I've got friends that I literally could not talk to them for 2 years. We could talk to each other today, and not one time will either one of us say, man, I can't believe you haven't called, or what's up with this? I mean, you get all big and all of a sudden you don't have time. No, it wouldn't even happen. We would laugh. We would cut up. We'd, hey, good, man. What else has been going on? Yeah, Caleb, I can't believe he's in 8th grade. And there would be about 30 minutes of back and forth, and it'd be it. And we'd both hang up okay with it. So it depends on the type of friend, the family, where they're at emotionally, mentally, what can they take. So there's some people you don't even need to give an explanation. But there's other friends or family that you might be like, hey, you're like my brother and I used to talk on the phone every day. Now it's like once or twice a month. And I told him up front, and I say, man, right now, I'm just in a crazy busy place of life where I'm trying to figure it all out. And, like, for example, dating. I don't even have time to date right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, to even, squeeze in a date, I just don't even know how. So why frustrate myself or anybody else? Mike, I believe it all comes back to upfront communication. So I'll sum it up by saying there's some people you don't even need to explain. They get it. There's some people, though, you do need to explain, hey, I still love you. I still care. It's nothing personal at all. I'm just telling you, for this season of my life right now, I don't even think I have an extra 5 minutes. And I really don't. I know when people say, if you don't mind calling me, it'll only take 10 minutes. Like, I don't have 10 minutes right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you just go, the key word was seasons. So you've got to communicate with every person that is in your inner circle and tell them where you're at. Like, hey, for the next 6 months, I won't even be able to text you. Like, it might be that. It might be like, hey, for the next, 30 days, I won't be able to talk, text, email, nothing. I love you. I'll be back in 30 days. If it's an emergency, I'm here. And I know, Mike, again, depends on what the season and situation is. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree completely with that, and I was actually going to touch on what Jeff had said about communicating using concrete terms, and this is because this is really something that's recently, I've made some shifts in the way that I communicate. In the past, I'm a peacemaker by nature, and I tend to avoid conflict and those sort of things, and sometimes that leads to lack of clarity in communication. And I think that causes problems sometimes. And don't get me wrong, I know the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the sons of God. And it is good to be a peacemaker and all those things. And I definitely don't attempt to stir up strife. But sometimes there's a subtle nuance between, sort of sugarcoating the truth a little bit, or sugarcoating the real reality of what you're trying to communicate, and then communicating it in concrete, real, easy to understand, simple terms that may not, go over quite as good, if you see what I'm saying. And so sometimes, we tend to make the mistake of being a little bit vague in our communication in a way that's going to avoid conflict, when the reality is sometimes you're much better served bringing it right out, being very clear, very plain, very upfront, and communicate it like words that Jeff mentioned, concrete terms, like very clear, very absolute, and sometimes that makes a big difference. So, um,
Yeah, you know what, Mike, and you're right. And what at first it might sting people, but believe it or not, if you sting them with reality and truth, even though they might be disappointed, even if they may say, "Well, I disagree with you," you know,
yeah,
that it's still better off than fluffing them. I know that from experience because I used to try to soften the blows in life and let people down easy. I can't let them down easy anymore. You know what I'm saying? The blow just has to come because, Mike, when you have a focused breakthrough in your life, when you really see, they say leaders define reality. Problem in our world is because of movies and social media and whatever else has played into this, there's way too much fantasy up here in people's minds.
right,
Most people don't have realistic talks. Most people don't have truthful talks. Most people don't look at, like your spouse. Like how many spouses out there have felt neglected? And I go, tomorrow's our business entrepreneurship show. How many of our kids have felt neglected? How many of our friends or family have felt neglected because the family trip we normally go on, we just can't. I just can't do it, right? So the quicker that you can tell them, a lot of times we want to delay because, we don't want to, like Mike said, we want to be peacemakers. We're hoping that it goes away, but it's not going to go away. So don't let any grass grow under your feet. Like the moment you've got to let somebody down, let them down. The moment that that you can't make an appointment, let them know immediately. Because delay only, then they're like, I can't believe you're just now telling me. Why didn't you tell me this? Right? I mean, it makes it a whole lot easier.
and it saves time and effort too, because that direct, clear communication can solve an issue, and you don't have to readdress it. And otherwise you spend so much energy, recycling issues and recycling situations and going back to it, touching it, and as in this crazy busy season of our lives, I'm like, I'm dealing with an issue with PayPal, for example, and just the fact that I have to go back and touch it again just drives me crazy. I'm like, I have 26,000 things to do. I don't want to have to go back and deal with this, but at the same time you have to, and I would have rather just resolved it, at the first place. And it's the same thing in relationships. It's like if we leave things sort of undone and hanging out there, and it just drains your energy. Um, hey, let me ask you this, because this sort of takes off from what you had said about maybe family and even spouses sometimes uh, feeling neglected, and this is a question that came in. What are three things we should do to make sure our friends don't feel taken advantage of? And this is a great question, because sometimes misunderstandings happen, and without intending to, our friends can feel like we're taking advantage of them. What are some things we can do to avoid that?
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. Are you talking about like friends, meaning like, let's say I need you to help me move, but when you're moving, I literally can't help you that weekend, you know?
Yeah.
So me personally, I mean, let's get practical. Let's say Mike spent all day helping me move. And let's say like 2 months from now, he's moving on a day that my son has a baseball game. So rather than just saying, look, man, I can't do it, I would have no problem saying, well, I'll tell you what, let me cover your U-Haul. I can't make it, but I'm going to cover your U-Haul, the cost of your U-Haul. Or I'm going to, I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, if you got any painting to do down the road, in other words, there's always, Mike, in all relationships, we need to strive for the law of fair exchange to always be at play. Now, however, that's not always realistic, and it's not always God. In other words, there's certain relationships that God called us to be in that relationship for what we can give and not what we can get. And a lot of times knowing that I'm going to be the giver here, and that I am going to be taken advantage of, so to speak, you got to put it in perspective. So both sides have to have the right thinking. So three quick things, obviously thank you cards go a long ways. Expressing thanks, finding a way to not repay,
Right.
but it's the law of fair exchange, meaning like, okay, surely there's something I can do to help you. You know, and of course, sometimes, Mike, with some people, it's never enough. No matter what, they're going to feel taken advantage of. I mean, you could spend 3 days helping them move, ask them to come over and just help you change the oil in your car, and suddenly they are the victim. They're not talking to you for 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just some people that are straight up, no matter what. You know, the teeter-totter never works with them. You ever try to get on a teeter-totter with somebody that as soon as they sat down on it, you went flying in the air? Like, you know, and no matter what, you shake, you bounce up and down, you can't get it even. Where teeter-totter is supposed to go up and down, right? Up and down, you know, kind of like a yo-yo or, you know, a game of tennis. You treat this issue of taking advantage of like tennis. They hit it to you, you hit it to them. You know, Mike, that's really at the end of it, and it may not I'm my repayment for somebody. There's been people, Mike, that have done unbelievable kind things for me that they may not see a return or an exchange for years. And that's just how it is. But in my mind, I literally have a list, a written list of people that helped me when I was a quote-unquote nobody. Literally, like have their names on paper. And I am strategically planning on helping or blessing them or their children or grandchildren. Like nobody in my life will ever feel taken advantage of. Now, currently they might. Right. You know, it's possible, Mike. It happens because there's just certain times when people give more than what they get back. And see, that's why the perspective has also got to be, wait a minute, true givers never feel taken advantage of. So in actuality, if your motives are right, you really don't ever feel taken advantage of, even when people do take advantage of you, because you did what you did. The Bible says do everything for the glory of God. You know, do it as unto the Lord. So God is the one that repays us and rewards us anyway. If people never say thank you, if people never you know, so I believe in the both sides of the equation, and it all comes back to a person's thinking and their motives. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love the teeter-totter analogy for our viewers that are in other parts of the country. They may call that a seesaw. We, of course, call it a teeter-totter where I grew up in Iowa. But, you know, the analogy is powerful because when it's unbalanced, you know, the unbalanced person just really needs to get a little closer to the center, and that, you know, center closer to the fulcrum, and then it balances out. So, you know, if you're outweighing your friend in the relationship and you feel like they always owe you, maybe you're a little too far away from the fulcrum and get a little closer to the center, and then things will balance out a little better for you. So, and that's the teeter-totter.
Well, like I know me, Mike, in my life, I finally got a good analogy, huh? In my life, Mike, I know. I've even expressed to some people, like, look, I've done it with tears. Like, I'm broken right now. I don't have anything to give. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about just, I'm emotionally dead. I'm, you know, I'm not a whole person right now. I don't have much to give. I've said it to some of the closest people on the planet with tears. And I said, but if you'll swim the river with me, it'll swing around and you know, I'll come back. You know, I said it when I first went through my divorce and I went through all that crazy time of my life and I lost everything and I was just down to nothing. Let's put it that way. I mean, when I say I lost everything, I lost everything. So, you know, I didn't have much at all. You know, Mike, I'll be honest with you. There were some fair weather friends who took off. I forgive them right now again. I forgive them again for my 3,000th time. I forgive them today.
It's good. Hey, incidentally, the analogy was really good, and I'm giving you a 9.
9, wow. 9's awesome. Coming from the analogy king, that's like me tasting somebody's juice and being like, this is the top 3 juices I've ever had. Hey, great show today, Mike. You know, I know we're past our time, and thanks everybody for being flexible on the 11:30 slot. Tomorrow, we'll be back at 9:30 to talk about business, entrepreneurship. Even if you're not a businessman or going to start a business, you would still get a lot of value out of that show. So stop by tomorrow morning at 9:30 EST. Take to heart what Mike and I shared today. Share it with others. Again, talking about not taking it, give back. Go give this link to a friend, text it to some people, put it on your Facebook, and, feel free to share with us what you learned, what helped you, and stay connected. You can download our podcast off iTunes, subscribe to our Fuel for Success on YouTube, Spreecast, find us on Facebook, Matt Hopkins and Mike Maddox, folks. We got Mike Hopkins all the way from Minnesota. And myself, my name is Matt, and I am from Florida. And we're here every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just to coach, guide, give content, add value to your life, bring motivation, bring encouragement. And this show is shot live, so you can ask questions. And other than that, we'll see you all tomorrow morning at 9:30, my friends.
Have an awesome Wednesday, everyone. See you tomorrow.